Hi, my name is Darren Stevenson. You can find me on Facebook as the Darren Stevenson in San Francisco. This is my YouTube channel. I am something of an intelligence artist. What that means is I've been fascinated throughout my entire lifetime with how intelligence happens, what it is, where it goes, what it does, how it becomes intelligent. And when you start thinking about this in a deep way, in fact, even if you think about language very deeply, or poetics, or heroism, or justice or truth, then you will notice that there's a lot of what I will call mimics running around. These are people who appear to be wearing costumes of teachers or spiritual leaders or protectors, heroes. And yet, invariably, we tend to find, if we look very deeply at all behind the costume, the opposite is at play. So an intelligence artist is someone who's a bit like a con man, a confidence artist, or a magician, except that an intelligence artist, unlike the people who sort of deceive you for your entertainment and then profit from you, an intelligence artist gets the profit a different way, with the pH. Let me explain. An intelligence artist is something like a prophet in the pH sense rather than the FIT sense. By the way, we're going to be contending with the cars because it's 4:42 p.m. on Tuesday, December 31st, and soon the traffic will come. Huh? Anyway, more than PROFIT, profit, I'm interested in actually a commodity, a very amazing commodity, the commodity of intelligence. And intelligence and prophecy have a strong link, even though this is often destroyed in our culture. Notice, by the way, that we have these two kind of strange hands. They're not the same. They look the same. You know, they're structurally very similar. But they're in two different universes, actually. In this universe, everything is kind of this way. In this universe, everything's kind of this way. They do this wonderful thing like this, and our brains and eyes and sides of our body and everything are also kind of like that. Although notice that there's a couple of interesting things to notice. The first one is this side, the right, for me, the video is reversed, by the way, so that this is actually my right side, and this is my left. This is my left hemisphere, which controls my right side of my body. This is my right hemisphere, which largely controls the left side. This side is aware of this side as itself. This side is pretty much an individual by itself, right? And it doesn't like the idea that there's this other guy over here. And by the way, this hand, the sort of dominant hand, should be subservient to this one, which is actually the sort of meta hand. Yeah? For each of the very specific functions of this hand, the hand we don't use much also has functions that we've ignored. And as we develop this hand's functions, it does develop our left hemispheres and our cultures in the image of this hand's way of being in the world, the individual. As we develop this hand's feelings and senses, we can intelligently drive this hand, sort of both in our minds as human beings and in our cultures. Anyway, an intelligence artist is someone who uses other people's minds, he or she touches them, and this includes living places and beings, and rides them beyond their own intelligence into entirely other forms and modes of intelligence, of which, by the way, you are all familiar with many. The stories they tell us aren't very good. Dreaming is a profound aspect of intelligence that's more like, this side of the body, this side of the brain. Yeah, my right hemisphere, it's more like dreaming. It doesn't have a single identity. It doesn't have any specific identity. It's context sensitive, and it forms identities from myriads of possibilities in the moment, flowingly, like liquid clouds of mist. Yeah? And it's very fluid, and it doesn't care too much about self. It's ancient. This is brand new, by the way. This is like a little child. This is like a billion-year-old Buddha. Comparatively speaking. If this one were to evaluate this one, it would just say, oh, you're just a dreamer. You can't build anything. And it does that in our culture. Now, what I'm actually here for today is I'm going to read your minds in the future. I'm going to read the minds of people who I haven't met yet, who are reading this video, watching it, participating in it. And I'm going to try to, not psychically, but just using intelligence, because intelligence has lots of links that move in different ways within time. We don't know what they are. I don't know what they are. And I'm not a professional or an expert. I'm an amateur, like you. I'm an ordinary person, just living in the world, really interested in what the world is about. What is light? What is time? Intelligence, liberty, freedom. What are these things? What does it mean to be human? What could it mean if we weren't busy making it mean something else with our constant declarations, huh? Let's find out together. In order to do that, I'm going to show you some con games. I'm going to make you a magician of your own mind. And instead of selling you theories or leaders or dogmas or books, which I'm not going to do at all, we're just going to play a game together where I'll try to figure out what it is you want. And I have a little bit of an idea, but I'm going to let sort of just the field of living intelligence that we become in time and space, without being, in any way scientific, religious, spiritual, intellectual. No, we're just going to be human, alive. Right? We're going to leave the science at the door, we'll leave the religion at the door, all the New Age theories at the door. No quantum physics. Just me, you, living beings, the planet, our history, and intelligence. Let's have a talk about that for a minute. We'll get down to basics. And I'm going to show you how a certain kind of con gets perpetrated on us, where we lose the power of our hands. And after that, only other people can handle things for us. Even each other. We don't even get to touch each other anymore. Yeah? Forgive me. I'm going to really be myself doing this, because this isn't a lecture. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just playing here a game with time and intelligence that I'm hoping you'll play with me. And it's a big experiment. I'm like I said, I'm not an expert. I don't know what I'm doing. Other people know lots of things I don't know. But I think we can find out some things here that are really surprising, and I think we can find them out fast. And I'd like to start that process out with a really brilliant woman, remembering that my camera's going to reverse this image. I'll show you the cover of her book. Her name is Elaine. I believe her last name is Scary, but it could be Scary. And the book cover is in the coverlet is in my hand. And this is her book. It's called Thinking in an Emergency by Elaine Scary. And it's an Amnesty International Global Ethics Series book. She's a genius, and her argument is fairly simple. She's trying to say that certain collectives and factions, having become capable and cognizant of implementing a plan whereby, through fear, they could steal everything, the remaining ecosystems, the government, our money, our work, our future, our history, because all the work that we've done will be for nothing. All the progress that we would have made, and they'll just steal most of that. They'll give us back a tiny pittance, say 2%, and then they'll burn down the rest of it so that we can't get any of it, right? Water, food, each other. Then they'll connect us through means they control, like Google and Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and then they will basically just they'll take all of our work, all of the work of our ancestors, all the wars we fought, and they will, they'll translate that into huge boosts for their personal egos and powers. They'll turn them into gods. They'll rocket into success, which, by the way, looks like human beings with a living world together with each other in astonishing evolutionary development and education and peacetime wonder, with thriving ecologies and the anciently conserved ecosystems alive and unmutilated, our children alive and unmutilated, our social networks alive and unmutilated. But no, they want to replace this with a mechanical system that they own, and we're going to talk about how that happens and what we can do about it. It involves two basic concepts. Well, three if you include the hand, which we're going to. In our culture, what happens essentially is that leaders, quote unquote, who claim to represent the people are actually mimics. These are a bit like pro wrestlers. They know how to work a crowd. They're a bit like hypnotists. they're a bit like magicians. They know how to manipulate forces in the population really, really easily. I'd like to read you a little bit of what Elaine Scarry is on about here, because what she does is show that our leaders used fear to steal everything: the future, our nation, each other, our educational systems. They did something, and she shows 4 models of response in emergency that are incredibly intelligent. And they all build intelligence, and they build human intimacy, whereas the models that we use do largely the opposite. They break down our intimacy with terror. They take all of the produce of our work and siphon that up to a very small number of people. And they largely forget about, kill, bury, or accuse us of being the problem. Let's talk about one of the things that, let me let Elaine talk about one of the things that she'd like us to know about Switzerland. But before we do that, here we go. Yeah, here we go. It is crucial to understand that what differentiates Switzerland and the United States is not that one country believes shelters are potentially effective and the other country believes they are ineffective. Both countries have devoted vast resources to the belief that they are effective. Shelter is important. What differentiates Switzerland and the United States is the beneficiaries of the shelters: the population, in the case of Switzerland; the government leaders, in the case of the United States. Switzerland's goal is to make certain it can enact, quote, legal equality, unquote, by making certain, quote, every inhabitant of our country has the same chance of survival, unquote. In contrast, not only was the money spent on the United States presidential fallout shelter vastly in excess of the amount spent on fallout shelters for the population, billions of dollars to protect the president, $0 to protect the population. It was vastly in excess of all civil defense allocated for the population, for floods, fire, hurricanes, and other catastrophes, including earthquakes and everything else. Radiation, poisonings, you name it. Now, she goes on to say, after a small diversion, one of 2 things is true. Either fallout shelters are useless, in which case neither the population nor the government should have them, or they are useful, in which case both the population and its leaders should have them. That's basically a black or white choice. There's not much gray there. Many things there's a kind of gray area. Yeah, but in this choice, it's not. It's either we all deserve them or not. Now, one of the reasons that Switzerland has a shelter policy where they make everybody have shelters under their house. So every house has a fully stocked fallout shelter, but it's not obviously just a fallout shelter. It's a way to protect each other against various kinds of incursions or invasions or blackmail, right? Extortion. My force is that without those shelters and without the networks that the shelters build of human trust, they practice the shelters, okay? They practice sheltering each other. No matter what their creeds or agreements or ideas are, they practice sheltering each other, see, all the time, so that they can't really be destroyed by an outside force. They won't be destroyed by that. In fact, not only that, they can drive their government instead of their government driving them, because the government knows how strong its people are, and that they cannot be frightened or intimidated and broken apart like fingers on a hand that somehow think they become separate because power over here is dominating them by hiding this with a trick, a metaposition trick, right? Oh no, there's something going on where you're not really the same. You guys should all fight, right? Like the liberals should fight, the Democrats should fight, the Republicans should fight the anarchists, right? Meanwhile, over here, we're skyrocketing to fame. On all of your work production, you're getting none of that. You're going lower and lower as you fight, and we're just attacking you, right? Then, as you go lower, we just attack you while you raise us up. So, in our cultures, we've got a real problem with how we deal with leadership, and this is also the model for masculinity. What is that model? Well, it is absolute godhood and success for me, and nothing for you, because we're competitors, right? So our fellowship is really only kind of a game we play socially to get, quote, ahead. Ahead? I won't go into the the euphemism or the metaphor there too deeply, but I think we know what comes from that. Now I'd like to show you a couple of interesting things, and before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit more about Switzerland, because as we talk about the two cons that are played on us and how we can radically reverse them quickly, this example will become important. Elaine Scarry. Switzerland has accurately been described as a reverse Potemkin village. A Potemkin village has visible facades with no actual construction behind them. Switzerland is the opposite. Its shelter system has few visible structures, but inside many mountains are hidden hospitals, and beneath every house is a fully stocked and working fallout shelter. Dispersed throughout the countryside are shelters for the artworks and artifacts held in common by the population that connect them to one another, and, here's the critical thing, to a transnational culture. See, we're supposed to have a natural culture, and then a human culture, and then an interpersonal culture, and then a natural culture. A national culture, right? So sort of this pyramid. We've erased the natural culture. We've gotten rid of most of the human culture and replaced that with representations, fashion, fetishes. And then we've gotten rid of all of the human sort of intimacy culture and human culture by doing the same thing, representations, the internet, etc. And then the ruling culture has become an elite monarchy, tyranny class that just keeps rising while it just keeps attacking all those other ones. And the one that it's attacking most is nature, of course, because that's the one that has no voice. Who can say anything for nature? If we can't speak for people, you don't even want to understand what's happening to nature right now. If I were to tell you in any explicit fashion, your news is not, even your wildly conspiracist news is not accurate enough. We shouldn't listen to that kind of news, but because it's going to mislead us about where to look and why and how to solve it. But yeah, nature is taking the worst catastrophic beating probably in recent millions of years in terms of like species loss and ecosystems just being burnt down. And part of the reason that's happening is so it can just be converted into war and explosive mechanical reproduction technologies, so that there won't be any possibility of that interfering with the goals of the elites, right? They want that gone. That's just like intelligence. I'm going to explain two cons that are used that are fascinating here. The first involves the one that Elaine was talking about, the Potemkin village. There's a modern film, it's called High Plains Drifter, that I think may partake of this concept. I'm going to show you how the con works, how it's played. And it's a crucial feature of many cons, a wide range of cons. You can base magic tricks on it, you can base hypnotism routines on it that are very deep and powerful, can even change lives. Before we do that, I want to just make a really clear statement. A lot of people want to tell you what the spiritual universe is like, what the political universe is like, what the intellectual universe is like, what the New Age universe, or the conspiracy universe, or the paranormal universe, or the anarchist universe, or the demonic universe, some kind of universe they want to tell you what it is all about. I would just actually set all of that aside, all the whole cultural mess. It'll be there when we're done. So let's just set that aside. We'll play a game here. I don't know what I'm doing. You don't know what we're doing. Let's just play around and see what we can find out without all that junk. We'll keep our language and some of our suppositions about reality, but I'm not going to make any new cults. Let's look at these cons, how they're played on us. So the first one is the Potemkin village. How that works is you kind of build a village out in the middle of nowhere. And then you somehow let people know that it's there, so it draws them in. But there's nothing there. And then they notice that, well, gee, there's this whole village just sitting here. Why don't we come on in and make ourselves at home? So they do. So people move in. They're probably not people who have really great lives already, because otherwise they wouldn't be looking for a place like that, right? And that place wouldn't really interest them. It's not very connected to anything. But it's free, and it is built, so they can just move in with their families and live there. So they think this is a great idea, and it's not a bad idea in some cases. Depends kind of how it got set up and why, and by who. But the idea really in a Potemkin village, one of the ways to use it is you set up a village, people move in, and then you take everything from them. And you sell it because they're not connected, right, to anything. They're like a little satellite out in the middle of nowhere, really. And they thought they were going to get something great, but actually they can't get food. So they grow food, but you come in and take all that, and then just give them a little bit back and make them pay you for that, right? And things like that. There's lots of different ways to use this principle. Once you understand it, you're going to see it all around you. Don't get paranoid, okay? Don't be afraid. This has been everywhere for millennia. This is part of being human. Use it. I'm going to show you how to spin it around for free so that you'll have these techniques and you can use them as creatively as you like, and you can reflect them back to me and teach me. We'll just go together learning forward in this game, right? Like we used to do as children. Without any external authorities, they can't, what are they going to do? I'm not one. I'm not an authority. We're just playing here. So let's continue. Learn a little bit more about the Potemkin village gambit. Now imagine how you could use this. Suppose it was like World War I or something, and you're getting bombed from above, and you had some assets you needed to protect. So you could build a giant battleship out of foam and launch it, because they didn't have satellites. So they're just flying over the kind of a blurry picture. That big battleship looked like a real target. You could stage it so that you could draw the enemy to that zone with the Potemkin battleship, and they would attack it and you could wipe them out. Yeah. Or just deflect another attack and move forces that you needed to protect. Right? So it can be used defensively, but it's mostly an offensive weapon. It creates victimized populations, and our entire nation has been taken with a variety of simultaneous Potemkin village scams. The answer to the Potemkin, it's like a chess match, right? There's an opening, they have different names. The con games have different names. I'm not a con man, I'm an intelligence artist, as I said. An intelligence artist, like any good detective, has to be very concerned with uncovering cons, because all of human culture is based on cons, all of it. All of it. Even language, even everything. So, if you want to be an intelligence artist, learn about con games. Don't con people with them. What you want to do is reverse engineer them and find out how to give the people back their power so that they can link up like this and not be like this and think, I got to fight him. He's the problem. She's the problem. They're the problem. It's the homosexuals. No, it's the liberals. No, it's the people from that country. No, it's the people with this skin color or who don't have that skin color. No, it's the people with money. No, it's, the demon-oriented people. No, it's the religious people. No, it's not any of those people. You know what it is? We don't count this. So we don't know it. But a dolphin pod is made of it. It's one animal first. If one of these animals gets stranded, they're all stranded. Till that one's free. Now that sounds rough, and it is. But it also gives them powers of intelligence unlike anything you and I would ordinarily be able to imagine in our wildest dreams. And an intelligence artist watches nature to learn how nature handles con men and mimics. Yeah? And it's fascinating that nature has a lot of interesting ways of dealing with that. Let's talk about this Potemkin. Now, here's what happened in the United States. They kind of reversed Potemkin, or excuse me, they made a Potemkin village of the people themselves. Now, this was really audacious. The way they did this was by diseducating you, breaking you up with terror and lies, telling you nonsense about nature, nonsense about the nature of the universe, nonsense about religion, nonsense about the New Age. And believe me, I mean nonsense, like stuff even kids wouldn't believe. But the adults buy this stuff up like crazy. The kids all know it's nuts. They get involved in it because it's status toys, it's status jewelry, right? So they kind of wear it like status jewelry, and they like their costume, their representation of themselves. Yeah, the children are very aware of something. In a place where you can't get enough attention to out-compete a machine that your parents own, you need to be a representation because that's the only thing they'll like. And that makes for children who are broken, it makes for adults it makes for insanity. Everyone just goes nuts, and they all start blaming each other. Meanwhile, these people, the head people, the D-head people, yeah, they rocket up into ecstatic, egotistical fulfillment. Richard Branson, Elon Musk, people on the top of human success, yeah? And we look up to them like they're gods. They're actually crushing us down while they're rocketing upwards. Now, Elon's an interesting case because he's a little more humanitarian. But an ex-altruist, which is something we're going to talk about, is a whole other kind of thing. That is more like someone who can lift everybody else. Yeah? Now, this is a concept coined by Andrea Kojewski, a researcher and a really amazing person who talks about how we need the different kinds of diversity and how even people who have sociopathic tendencies or pathological tendencies can in many cases become this kind of extreme hero or this altruist, which is not an ego at all necessarily, although it can be. There's another kind of extreme altruist that's not a focused ego. It's not one of these. It's actually one of these. It's not even one of these. We'll talk about this, but in a minute. Let's get back to the Potemkin village. So if you just really miseducate a population, what you get is the facades of people. They look like people. You can tell them they have the rights of people, but they can't defend those rights, so they don't have them. You can tell them that they have the connections of people, but they don't really. They have machines, which you control, so they don't have those. You can tell them that they're animals, but they have no understanding what nature is because you've told them things that are ridiculous, like animals aren't intelligent, which is absolutely insane. That's like saying, I don't even know what, it's like saying, I guess it's like saying that if you got salt crystals in a glass of water after leaving it on your desk for a few days, that was because you are salty. Now, it's kind of true, you are salty. But you got salt crystals in the water because the water was salty. And intelligence is the same. You don't get it unless the whole thing's intelligent. You don't. And nature is the source of our intelligence. We're burning that down and saying we're intelligent, and it's not. That's just like this guy saying we're rich and they're poor. Really? Well, how did you get rich? Didn't we lift you up there? I mean, so there's this really weird con going on where they create a Potemkin village out of our people by not educating them, not allowing them to be connected, frightening them really bad with all kinds of terrifying news and things like that, not showing them the nature of intelligence, the dangers of language, the way is to detect mimicry so that they can know the difference between justice and justice, truth and truth, humanity and humanity, liberty and prison, defense and rape. See, that's different if you're defended or someone's raping you. That's just different. We are having a hard time saying that these days for some reason, as a nation, apparently. Rape means an egregious violation, and that's what our government and our ideals, our idea of progress, intelligence, has become. So we need to find out why. We need to detect mimics. And the first thing we need to understand is that the elites build us. They Potemkin village us. They give us a facade, and there's nothing in there because we haven't educated ourselves. We've read some books and seen some films and stuff, and maybe we've done some psychedelic drugs, or we've read a couple of radical authors or something, but we are not ready to lead anything to anywhere. We're just going to argue with people. Blah, 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 blah. He's right, she's wrong, it's because of this, it's that. No. It doesn't work. It's not intelligent. It's not. If a dolphin pod did that, it'd be dead right now. The only reason we can do it is because nature absorbs the damage. So instead of us being just wiped out by our stupidity, nature absorbs it. We have to stop that. And then also, we absorb it. First we absorb it, then nature absorbs it. It's just a chain of these people on the top. Not only that, they're only getting like 2% of the cream. So if we just work together, we're going to get like 80% of the cream. They can still have their 2%. We'll be able to guide them. They'll be intelligent. We'll be intelligent. We'll have revolution overnight, just by playing the game a little differently. Let's look at how this works. They Potemkin villaged the entire nation, right? They took over the Indians. I mean, it's just, and then they made false people who were just representations of ideas and book ideas and religions and things. It's ridiculous. These aren't human beings yet. You're not a human being just because you're born looking like this, You have to become a human being. You have to discover what it might mean and then step into some of that. Otherwise, you're really just you're a prototype. And they know this. So they want to make sure that the prototype stays a prototype. You can understand that, right? Because a prototype can't threaten you. And if it can't connect, okay? If there's none of this palm here that actually allows the fingers and the leaders, the working members and this. Because by the way, this leads to something like us, right? I have a thinking member. I have 4 working members. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 3 segments, yeah? So I have one unifying body. I'm first one being, one whole thing. I need all of me, okay? If you took my torso away, how good would this be? Imagine if this thing was just separated from the body and talking to you from outside. Well, you're not very cool. You don't think. Come on, man. I mean, I do everything. Does that sound like our government by chance? In fact, you people are just, you're just hangers-on. You don't understand success. Really? If I just took my head off my body and I was a woman, it might say, you're too fat. You don't look like a fashion model. If I took my head off and I was a man, it was like, you're not a bad enough warrior. You don't hate women enough and subjugate them. You don't dominate and to kill. These sound like familiar messages from our culture. If I took my justice head, why don't you put everyone in prison? All those people who are poor. Why don't you just turn the states into prisons? Didn't they all steal media? They're all copyright thieves. They're felons. Your whole nation is felons. Turn the states into prisons. Lock them down now. Right? Does it go on from there? So without my torso, right, that connects my head to my body, it's the same thing as if we hide this with fear or lies or pretense or religions or political parties or anything. We can still have our political parties. We just can't hide this. See, this is the difference between us and Switzerland. This is shelter. This stays open, right? If there's something really artificial in here, guess what? If we don't see this artificial thing that's in here like this, we can't do anything with our hand, right? I won't be able to type. I won't be able to play the guitar. I won't make these gestures that'll help me communicate with you. If I then try to put something else in my hand, I'm not going to be able to grab it, right? And I won't even be able to see this thing. Because in this case, in the social case, it's my neighbor putting his car in the garage. We're competing with that. This is our social intelligence. This is our mind, right? So if this is hidden somehow by any kind of story or description of reality, especially of God or of truth or justice, which those have to be discovered together as we learn in process. They cannot be stipulated as laws. Right? Or even laws, right? Laws can cover this up because they pretend that we don't need this, we just have laws. No, we need this so that we have a culture so intelligent that laws are basically fluff. We need them for the most extreme cases only. Yeah? This is our law first, and then law functions on top of that. Otherwise, these people just replace this with law. Ta-da! You know what happens then? Dun, 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 dun. And then these people have all these people fighting each other and even fighting these people, but they can't touch them. These people have all the power. Every time these people fight, they get more power. Every time they think, they get more power. If they work, they get more power. No matter what these people do, they sink down. These guys go up. And pretty soon, you got this. Except, yeah, the unity's hidden. Yeah. So you just got this. And this guy just starts going, and the planet starts dying. And the future starts dying. And all the things we would have invested in start dying. So, how do we turn that around? Like this. If people set up a Potemkin village, which basically, not all of the population, but in general our culture and our population and all of its branches are Potemkin. All of them. If they set that up, what you do is this. You become shelters for each other. No creeds, no leaders, no dogmas, no books, no names of things. It's just something we do. No one made it up. We don't know where it came from. It's like thinking it, and everyone does it. Even children. In fact, the children seem to really like it best. Wouldn't that be strange? We could respect and adore each other. We could revere truth and discover justice again. We could learn what liberty looks like, since we've never seen it. We might even, who knows, stumble across intelligence. We used to have some, you know. It was a long time ago, I agree, but come on now, we're still the vessel. We're still made to carry it together, but we have to carry it together like this, okay? Not like this, not like this, no. Now these people generate anxiety, fear, adoration, rock stars, comedians. Comedians are closer to the truth. They're closer to a revolutionary. Even revolutionary heroes are a problem, right? Even radicals are a problem. You got these radicals over here, they're a problem. Everyone's afraid of these guys. You need these guys. These guys become Robin Hoods when they're properly, integrated. And you need the conservatives, and you need the Democrats, you need the idealists, you need the fierce leaders, but they all have to work for each other. Not for books or dogma, little phrases and quotes and quips that sound intelligent, but destroy intelligence because they destroy this. And they destroy where this connects to the rest of the world, to reality, to time and space, to history, to the future. And once that's destroyed, these people can take the future, right? They can burn down the future right now, And we'll help them, we'll pay them to do it, and then we'll pay them for the remains on the backside, and they'll take whatever's left. So when they build the Potemkin village, that's the goal. We're going to take everything, and then we're going to burn down the rest, and then we're going to take whatever's left, and then we're just going to keep taking in littler cycles, but we're going to get all of it, all the work. And, as that happens, the people do more and more and more and more work. They get less and less and less and less and less resources. They get no contact with each other, no contact with nature. We got basically modern America. And the future looks grim if we don't do something different, but we can do something different that's really simple and beautiful. It's so beautiful. It will redeem all of the human future. We'll start redeem all the human past. We'll start assembling the future in front of us together, intelligently, instead of reacting, right, to these ridiculous news reports and things, which are in many cases sort of true, but they don't help us. So what we'll do is this. We're going to reverse the reverse Potemkin. We're going to put content in our communications, like I'm doing here. We're going to learn how to be intelligent together. We're going to return this to our common experience and our connection to the rest of the world and time and history, each other. We're going to learn the dangers of language, the dangers of knowledge, the dangers of representation, the dangers of technology. We don't have to get rid of them. We're going to learn the dangers of justice and defense. We don't have to get rid of them. And we're going to reestablish this whole thing in our direct experience together with and for each other. Those are the key words. We need to have a beautiful purpose here. Their purpose is malign. Okay, their purposes all are different. Some of them are sort of good, some of them are, not so great. It depends. But when they're bound together, they become purposive. They are then a unity, sort of like that dolphin group swimming through the ocean. Now, they can repel any shark. Individual dolphins might have a little trouble. A pod, no problem. No shark will take them. And they have a leader. They have a pod leader, right? But they're sort of playing this leapfrog game where each person's unique skills bring the others into developmental expression, right? Into learning and into sort of real victory and real glory instead of the phony victory and the phony representational glory. So by rewarding these behaviors in each other, by paying attention to each other when we do things that are intelligent and beautiful and human, that liberate minds and teach us, and by not paying so much attention to the other things, that one change alone, we'll start to build networks like this where we depend upon each other intimately and we become interdependent lives, even across vast distances. I already have many, many friends like this. You are among them. We are learning together right now. This is an example of what I'm talking about. Right now we're reestablishing this just by talking about it. And it's really interesting because I'm kind of taking this away slowly. I'm showing you, like, here's the con. Now there's another con they use, which is the reverse Pinocchio. That's really simple to understand. What it means is you take a real person and you convince them that they can't compete against representations like fashion models, rock stars, war heroes, film heroes, intellectual heroes, gurus, spiritual heroes, psychics, scientists, computers, automobiles, iPods. They can't compete. Those things get attention, they don't. So, and I mean it. I mean, cars get attention while children die. Cars are in garages all around here. They're surrounding our city blocks just like viruses. We build them. They run us. Do you pay insurance? Just in case, just out of curiosity, are you paying money every month out of your work to support a monster thing that lives out, that doesn't even alive and kills children and the whole world's being destroyed for it? Just out of curiosity, were you one of the owners of one of those? Are you paying insurance on top of the environmental costs of that luxury that you use mostly for one or two people in most cases, probably? Are you? I don't want to accuse you, but think about it. Are you paying extra to pay extra for extra and to steal the future for all living beings by using a machine that has made our wars? Are we all doing things like this without thinking? We are. And we are to blame, but we don't have to. We can, just turn the tables around and we will use all that as power to go forward, right? We don't have to shoot anyone down. We can have a revolution that happens overnight because we just start acting so intelligently together that there's nothing to attack. We'll transform history and all the mistakes we've made into fuel to bring us all rocketing into evolutionary development, which is the nature of a biological system like Earth. It's meant to produce huge benefit yearly, massive intelligence benefit. And we've been shunting all of that into reproduction of representations and machines. And then burning it down to shunt it into that. And then burning ourselves down to shunt it into that. No more of that. We need each other. We need this back. So, the reverse Pinocchios, you take a real person, you convince them they can't compete with representation. So they start becoming a representation. Even in their mind, they make stories and fantasies without being anything, really. They don't learn how to become something. And they'll demonstrate this the moment they start talking. You'll hear phrases out of books instead of their own intelligence, and only phrases out of books. They won't have their own ideas, right? They're just sort of parroting things they've heard. They're very superficially minded. They're prototypes. They're facades. They could have become human beings had they been educated or brought up in any kind of human and natural culture connected with nature, intelligence, other human beings who are not merely prototypes, not merely facades, who haven't been Potemkined, right? Then they would have become human, but they didn't. They were given examples of parents that didn't. They did other things instead, things they thought were more important, apparently. Apparently? Apparently. So, the children became facades. They were lots of representations, and they went crazy, and their very wealthy parents could not cure them. I know 50 people like this. Their beautiful daughter, or daughters or sons, their whole family, their wives, everybody, is going insane. And there's nothing they're millions of dollars. It can't buy them sanity. Believe it or not, I could probably repair those minds. I probably could repair those minds with a little bit of support. It's not that hard. If you understand how they got built. And we're talking about it now, right? You hide this. You get little girls who think they're supposed to be stick figures and wear makeup. Do you know what makeup actually is? It's the acknowledgement of sexual surveillance and the agreement to be sexually surveilled. That's exactly what makeup is. And the tie basically says, I'm the sexual surveiller. I'm the jailer. I'm the this. I'm the D-head. I'm going to push you down so I'll rise up in hardness and tower over you and make you do things. Rawr. Schizophrenia. Psychosis. You want to know how shootings happen? Bingo. Right? You broke this person away from the pod. You isolated them so severely that they became what you projected. A monster. And suddenly, their identity just shattered. And anything with identity just turned around and became a monster. Right? And we did that. We all did that. Our culture does that to children. Then we attack them and charge you to punish them and charge me to punish them. As though they were the problem? Apparently. Now, so the reverse Pinocchio is where you get a real kid to be a representation or parent. And again, you do the same thing to reverse that. You just fill those people with content, meaning fill them with humanity. Let's fill with each other and with human unity and mutual uplift and mutual concern for everyone from now on. No more like they're this, they're that, he's a this. No, everyone. Every living being from now on, respect, reverence, care. No religion, no science. No books, no dogma. This, right? So we can reverse Potemkin, the Potemkin villages of the internet, of our cultures. And when that happens, we're going to take over all the communication stuff, not by war, by just communicating. That's all we have to do is just use exactly what we're using now, the technologies they built for us. The internet is a giant Potemkin village. You guys all run in there, they steal your intelligence away. And they form new kinds of intelligence to squish you down with. So we're going to go in there, and we're going to steal all that intelligence back for us, so that we're going to make the 80%. They're still going to get their 5. But we're going to have 80 plus 5. We're going to have the 80. They're going to have 5. They're going to pay us, okay? And we're going to make the 80 together that they've been burning down and stealing the rest. We're going to do it right now just by communicating a little bit differently and learning a few cons that have been used against us and how to reverse them together, with and for each other, our children, the mothers. The history of life on Earth has raised us to this position. We have a responsibility to act intelligently together now, without dogma or disagreement. In fact, this is our greatest power, although this may be our greatest power here, which is a much greater mystery. But this one, we got to retrieve this first. This may be our greatest power, and it's the power of mutual concern. That's what intelligence is. You can't get that in a machine. You can get a representation, but not the real thing. You and me. we're the real thing. We can learn in ways that are beyond our wildest science fiction, and we can do it next week together. I'm Darren Stevenson. Let's keep learning. Thank you.